So I mentioned that Lewis and Clark pulled over to a little flat spot where they spent a little over a week and a half at a place called Station Camp. And it was at Station Camp that they took their historic vote on where to build their winter headquarters. They knew they couldn't get back upriver to eastern Oregon where it would be drier and warmer in the winter. And so they had to build a headquarters down here. And of course they were on the Washington side. They took a vote, and one of the reasons it was considered historic was two of the people involved in that decision had no legal rights back in the United States. They couldn't vote. One of them was a slave by the name of York, a black man that was owned by Captain Clark, and the other one was a teenage Native American woman by the name of Sacagawea. She was only about 16 or 17 years old, but she had proven herself to be so valuable to the efforts of the Corps of Discovery that the captains wanted her opinion on the decision on where to build their camp. They ended up building on what's now the Oregon side of the river for a number of reasons. One, there was more game on this side of the river than there was on now. More deer and elk and waterfowl. And the Native Americans on this side, the Clatsons, were actually friendlier than the Chinooks on the other side. So they made the decision to build on the Oregon side. But the river was so wide, it was over 4 miles long, and it was very stormy. They paddled back up river several miles to where it narrowed to a little over half a mile, or no, about a mile. And then they paddled to the Oregon side and then paddled right down the river about where these tracks are right now to Young's, what's now Young's Bay. And then they paddled into Young's Bay and up a river that was called the Needle River. It's now called the Lewis and Clark River, and they built Fort Clatsop on the banks of the river, and they moved into the fort on Christmas Day of 1805. It took them a year and a half to get out here. They spent 3 months at Fort Clatsop, and they left on March 23rd, 1806. It only took them 6 months to get back to St. Louis. I think they were all looking forward to a home-cooked meal. You know, their round-trip journey was over 4,600 miles, and they surveyed it the whole way, but they didn't have modern survey equipment, and most of it was by dead reckoning, meaning they had to kind of guess what the distances were. Modern-day surveyors have followed their route and calculated that over that 4,600 miles, they were only off by about 60 miles total, which is incredible, because they just did it all by sight. Up in front of us is the Astoria Bridge. The bridge is 4.2 miles long, and it's almost entirely in the state of Oregon. The boundary line between the two states is the natural channel of the river, and at this end of the river, the natural channel is right up against the Washington shoreline. So all of this water is Oregon water. But the bridge was completed in 1966 at a cost of $24 million. And they put a toll on the bridge of $1.50 per car with the promise that once the bridge was paid off, they would remove the toll. Well, many of the locals thought that would never happen because it's essentially a bridge to nowhere. There is no community immediately across the bridge. You have to turn left or right and drive several miles either direction to come to any kind of a community. But the bridge proved popular enough that it paid for itself in 27 years. And true to its word, they removed the toll and it's now a free drive. How you doing? Good.